Hey, true believers. Today we are going over Uncanny X-Men 137. And you know how you'll see on social media pages a lot of people say, what's that one comic book or book that you read over and over again? As I was going through this for the review, I've noticed that I've read this book quite a few times, and I don't know how I keep coming back to it. And I think, actually stopping and thinking about it, I think because the X-Men started out kind of hokey. If you would go back and look at like X-Men #1, the ideas were there, but it didn't catch on until Claremont. Len Wein kind of kicked it off and then handed it off to Claremont. And then he just turned the X-Men into this huge phenomenon with the way that he just made you care about the characters, and then the action, the space dramas, the deaths, the lives, the marriages. And that was all just blended in, and you felt like these were real people. So by the time that Claremont got to this issue, we really knew who Jean was. We knew who Cyclops was. We knew who the new X-Men were that Len Wein introduced in Giant Size X-Men. And that's just what makes it all the more heartbreaking. And in just a span of, what was it? I think it was Uncanny X-Men, what was it, 120, or was it even before that? 107, I think, or the early 100s, that he introduced the Shi'ar and Lilandra. And by this point, we're invested in her. We want to see her and Charles be happily ever after together. And then here, the fate of the Phoenix. The print date on this, or the release date, should I really say that the cover date is September of 1980, but it was released June of 1980. And now, at the time of this recording, that makes this, we're coming up on the 42nd anniversary of this book. And whew, that makes me feel so old. Now, before we get into this gorgeous splash page and why everyone looks confused, let's talk about who made this book. This is Chris Claremont and John Byrne writing together, and then John Byrne doing the penciling. Terry Austin was the inker. Tom Orzanowski doing the lettering. Glennis Wine doing the colors. And there's everyone else working on the book. Now, I think it was Uncanny X-Men 135. Jean took off from Earth. Killed an entire planet. The population was like 5 billion. And this is when she went dark. Phoenix. She came back to Earth. Professor Xavier put psychic blockers in her mind to try to tamper down the Dark Phoenix persona. That's why in the movies you'll kind of see, they'll allude to how Professor X put psychic barriers in her mind at a young age, which I think is part of the reason why the movies can never get the Dark Phoenix saga right, because they just cannot get the emotional level that this story has. And it cannot be one movie. It's one of those ones where it definitely has to be a saga, just like the book was. So with the reemergence of the Dark Phoenix, Jean's actions, Lilandra knows that she has to step in. And so the X-Men are brought aboard the Shi'ar ship. And every time I read this book, I cannot get over how gorgeous this page is. It just hits me, and this just shows the X-Men in all their glory. And then Professor Xavier is just like, we're on the deck of the Shi'ar Imperial Dreadnought. I recognize it. This is the flagship of Lilandra's Grand Fleet. And if it's here, then Lilandra, the woman I love, cannot be far. And another thing, kind of like reading this era, it reminds me of how much I always loved Gladiator, how he's such a hard ass, but he has that loyalty to the Lilandra, and it kind of makes me miss that I didn't get that Marvel Legends figure, which I may eventually pull the trigger. But anyway, Gladiator says, you stand in the presence of Lilandra, majestic Shi'ar Empress. Your fate is in her hands. And I like how she just says, Phoenix must be destroyed. And Cyclops, always protective of Jean's, just like, As I recall, Phoenix stopped your brother from single-handedly destroying the universe, and this is how you repay her? Because the X-Men don't understand. You know, when Jean took off, they don't know what's going on out in space. Lilandra is kind of like the Federation. You know, let's call a spade a spade. If you think about it, the Shi'ar, thank you. We're very much inspired from both Star Wars and Star Trek. And if you go back and read the earlier issues, the freaking bridge, I think it was the bridge that looked like the old school Captain Kirk bridge. So moving on, this is when they talk about how the inhabitants of a planet that was 5 billion inhabitants were destroyed. And right there, the resolve that they had at first, look at how it kind of shakes the team. Warren, one of the first 5. Jean, could you? Did you? Storm, oh little one, dear sister, I have no words to comfort you, to ease your torment. And Cyclops like, I felt it happen through their rapport, but I didn't understand. So now they understand the gravity of the situation that Lilandra cannot just allow, because they're friends, to let this slide. This is genocide, like genocide level stuff. But before, she could lay down a judgment, Charles says, now, I don't know if I can pronounce this. I've never been able to pronounce what he says, but he goes, Aren Halar, I think is how you pronounce it. I challenge you to a duel of honor. And this was kind of like Charles's way of at least trying to save Jean. And I like how Lilandra says, magnificent Charles. You learn much about the Shi'ar during your too brief stay here on my homeworld. The one challenge that cannot be refused. Had the fates weaved a different tapestry, we might have had the stars. Instead, we face nothing but the ashes of a dying dream. Whew! That just gives you goosebumps about how Lilandra, again, she's looking at the man she loves, people that she considers her friends, and she has to lay this judgment. And she knows that this is going to lay a strain between her and Charles. But she still tries to hold it as a fair thing. However, with that said, the X-Men here, particularly Beast, he goes, Professor Xavier had no right to issue that challenge in all our names without consulting us. And he goes, but it did buy us time to consider our alternatives, whether we want to fight for her. So with that said, the book kind of shifts tones. Lilandra says that we'll do this in 24 hours. You have time to rest. Our services are at your disposal. So even though she has to lay a judgment, she's still being fair, especially since the honor duel has been laid down. And so Jean's just trying to lay with or trying to cope with the gravitas of the situation. She goes, the time has come to pay the price. God, merciful God, help me. Give me strength. And so while she's kind of thinking about her actions, Kurt's trying to really wrap his mind around everything, trying to think like, how did Charles Xavier have any right to issue this fight that we have to do? I mean, do we really need to save Jean? Warren's thinking the same thing. And then we cut to Logan. And, he's torn because he loves her as much as Cyclops does. And he's like, I may have to worry about anything, about living anywhere tomorrow. I ain't scared of dying. Never been. It'll happen to me one day, whether I want it to or not, so why waste time worrying about it? Nobody understands Jeannie like I do, the way she's become two separate entities. Jean ain't a killer. she can't be held responsible for her Phoenix actions. But the professors really split the two entities apart, assuring Phoenix and leaving Jean? Or suppressing Phoenix, I'm sorry. I hope so. But if push comes to shove, if I have to make a choice, I stand by Jean all the way. Now, what is really important about this is not only do you get those emotional levels of each character and what they're thinking, and I've said this before in past issues where, you get like a whole X-Men team or Avengers team, and later books, like more modern books, you'll just kind of see the characters standing in the background just being props or devices. Here, Claremont takes that time. He's got Nightcrawler, Colossus, Xavier, Beast, Jean, yada, yada, yada. But he's taken his time here to show you what each character is thinking about. And then, of course, follows it up with the two that are the focus of this issue and what their intentions are. And I like the point, I like what Jean thinks, where he's like, you're dressed as Marvel Girl. Why? I'm not sure. Nostalgia? Pride? I started as Marvel Girl. And that's how I'll finish. It's just a nice little line to show how Jean started as a human, not just Marvel Girl, but as a human. And that's how she wants to finish it. And it's very much a foreshadowing of what's to come. Now, there's an episode, an issue of X Force that we were going over, and I was talking about how I hate in the Krakoan line how Wolverine and Cyclops basically toss Jean around between the two of them. And I said, that's not Jean. This is why. Here. And she's like, she's wondering if she can actually survive the Phoenix or give up. And he's like, but to give up, that'll be like saying that Dark Phoenix has won. That you're evil. You're not. Jean, whatever happens, know that I love you and I'll stand by you. And you, Scott, with all my heart. That's Jean. Not the one that will just casually saunter away from Cyclops and go have some sultry drinks with Wolverine and some hot pool. That's not Jean Grey. Anyway, moving on. And the one thing I've kind of neglected to talk about is look at how beautiful the artwork here. Very much like something you'd see from Jack Kirby, even though this is John Burns and the art team. Just very breathtaking as we're taken to the blue side of the moon. And again, as we go back and talk about how each page kind of went over each character's motives, Storm saying that I consider you a sister, but can I condone your actions? The same thing with Colossus. How could Charles make us want to fight for her after we learn what she's did? But she's one of us. Can I really toss her aside? So you see the conflict of facts and the passion of the human spirit. Again, foreshadowing what this all kind of crescendos to in the end. And of course, Cyclops takes point, and the battle ensues. And that's what the middle half of the book is just straight up action as they have to fight the Imperial Guards. And the X-Men just don't do too well. Just when they think that they get some footing, something always happens. And I don't want to give too much of the fight away, so I'm going to kind of skip past that. I do like that Wolverine does end up in the home of the Watcher. And Wolverine's just kind of like, I'm getting tired of being bounced around like this, bub. You want to make something of it. And the Watcher kind of puts him through the ringer. And so he says, return here at your own risk, Wolverine, and ejects him from his home. And then here, this little panel's awesome, where Wolverine's kind of recovering from being ejected from the Watcher's home. He thinks he sees Storm. He's like, something's wrong. That looks like Aurora, sounds like her, acts like her. But my instincts are telling me this ain't her. And so for a minute, you're like, holy crap, as he grabs Aurora, flings her. But then you see that it's a Kree warrior. Because during all of this, we also have talks between the Skrulls and the Kree. So the Skrulls kind of want to just do their own thing. But even their own hatred of each other kind of what's the word I'm trying to say? Instead of focusing on getting Wolverine working alongside the Imperial Guards like they're supposed to, their bad blood between them ends up here. And what's weird is in this panel, you never hear anything more of it. But as I was kind of going through some of the trivia, there was supposed to be initially a caption saying that the Kree and the Skrull Warrior end up killing each other. Which, they let their hatred destroy them instead of working together with the Imperial Guards to try to make peace. So I just found that kind of poignant. And then the battle between Gladiator and Colossus. Just listen to the way that it's worded. They stand toe-to-toe, neither of them yielding an inch as they trade punch after punch of awesome power. Their fight is brutal, a clash of modern titans. The men is still, one, an irresistible force, the other, an immovable object, battling without let-up, giving everything they have. In the end, though, it's not they who decide. Rather, it's the ancient, fragile structures around them. This is why I get so irritated at modern books. Yes, Claremont has been cited as saying that he gets too wordy. But then again, I've said this before. It means something. Instead of being like, oh, look at these sillies. They're so, mad at each other. I'm all eyes. Blah, blah, blah. What do you want for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. We're feeling the narration. We're feeling the impact of this fight. And don't want to give away... I don't want to give away what happens. Again, I know this is a classic book, but there's not many people that have read it. And I'd rather someone come and get a facsimile copy like this and be able to enjoy it themselves. But as the fight rages on, Cyclops gets hurt, which kills all the psychic dampeners that Professor X had put in. Dark Phoenix emerges. And Xavier says, we have no choice. We have to take her down. We have to wear her down enough to be able to put her down for good. And they all don't want to. It pains them. Colossus goes at Jean. He's like, you asked me, Wolverine, to kill a friend. He punches Jean, knowing what she's full capable of. And he goes, I can't do it. And just look at the pain in her face. She's like, you pulled your punch, Peter. And she's like, I'm surprised my head's still attached to my body. She's like, thank you for knocking some sense into me. She's like, I understand what needs to be done. This is a symbiotic relationship. One can't live without the other. You guys need to kill me. And the way the book ends, it's heart-wrenching. It hurts. And the following issue is just as heart-wrenching as well, which makes for some awesome, dramatic storytelling. The artwork at this time, just everything was like a perfect storm. To just see what the fall of Jean Grey and what the Dark Phoenix power had done to her. So guys, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, any way you can, whether if you can find an original copy of this book or the facsimile copy, which, I got my original copy signed by Claremont, so there's no way I'm pulling that out of the plastic. So thankfully, I was able to find one of these. So if you do enjoy it and you can't afford an original copy, at least go support your local comic shop and get a facsimile edition. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little Phoenix bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.